In this video, I want to explain some stuff about using Git for version control. So here you can see in VS Code, I've got open this folder that's called Zoopy, and there's some files in it. And if we look in the File Explorer here at this directory, you'll see, well actually, I should point out here, if we go into View and under Show, I've got this hidden items ticked. Because of that, I can see this thing called .git, which is not necessarily usually visible because it starts with a dot. Okay. But so this .git, this is another folder, and it's got all sorts of stuff in it. It's a really rather complicated arrangement of stuff, and you really don't want to be looking in there or trying to mess with it. You should just use the kind of Git tools for manipulating what's in that directory. But sort of conceptually, it's important to understand that it's there. There's a bunch of stuff stored in that folder. And so what we normally do is we're going to click over here, the source control panel, and we can that will let us see some stuff about what's going on with these. So I should mention incidentally here we can do quite a lot of stuff with Git just on its own. It's sort of automatically built into VS Code, but I've also installed this thing called Git Lens, this extension here. If you don't have Git Lens, you can just type Git Lens in here, and it'll find it for you. I mean, I've got it installed already, but if it wasn't installed, I would have like an install button there, and I could just install this extension. Okay. But yeah, so let's go back maybe well, let's actually just quickly see what this thing's about. Okay, we've got this file zoo.py. I've actually done this one as a py file instead of a being a Jupyter notebook. We could just try and run it. Oh, okay. When I don't have this custom Kinter thing, I need to. Need to install that. Okay, now hopefully it should work. Okay, so again, I'm just going to run the whole file. You see this is a Python program with a graphical user interface. I've got this window here that's popped up, and yeah, it's a ridiculous game. I can just click here, and there's various other things I can do. Freeze it or unfreeze it. Clear the screen. Okay, so there's a bunch of little things. So I've got this code for this thing here, and so I as usual, I sort of made this in various stages. So let's look at the file history. So here on this left-hand panel here, this is showing me the whole history of the file. That's the initial commit here. Okay, so and now I've clicked on that. It shows me the kind of difference that this that was made by this change. So that's for this case, this was the first time I sort of set up this file. So we've got nothing on the left-hand side; it's completely blank. On the right-hand side, you've got the whole file. And then I click here for the next change. So here there's here, if you look closely, you can see that there's a fish in this kind of fifth position in this string of animals here, and over here there's a frog. So I changed the fish to the frog, and you can see there's a little message attached to this. It says replace fish by frog. Okay, and the next change here. When I just showed the thing, you might or might not have noticed that, that everything was moving around, and I just pressed the full stop, and everything stopped, and then I pressed the full stop again, and everything started again. So there was some extra code associated with that function. There's no function to freeze the game in this version, and there is one here, and you can look through. You can see in this bar over here, there's these kind of colored patches. There's a red and green patches indicating where stuff has changed. And here we're sort of looking, you see this kind of light gray thing here is showing what part of the file is visible, and in the middle there's this little change here. The only thing that changed is we've got this line here, self.isFrozen equals false in the new version, which wasn't there in the old version. And we scroll down to here. Okay, so then there's an extra couple of lines here. If C is full stop, then we switch the isFrozen flag. And then down here, there's a bit of extra stuff. See again here. So it's here. It's not being terribly intelligent here. There's kind of only So there's a here's the whole block of code for updating stuff, and here it's kind of on its own, and here it's within this if statement. We only do the update if isFrozen is false. Okay, so there's a few changes in the code, and we can see all these changes in this window here, which is showing me the file history. Then here there's one last change here, changing the acceleration factors. These parameters 1.2 and 0.8 here, and I decided to change them to 1.3 and 0.7. So I'm showing you, I've kept track of all the file history, I can go back. There's various ways. If something seems to have gone wrong, then I can go back and look at previous versions. I can revert to a previous version, do various other things, and this Git is also, it's set up very much with the kind of collaborative work in mind. So in fact, for this repository, all changes are by me, but there's stuff set up so that different people can change different things, and then you can merge the changes, or you can negotiate about whether the changes should be rolled back or not. If something that one person has done is inconsistent with something that some other person has done. So there's kind of lots of stuff we can do like that. Go back to this find the git lens thing. So we don't want to do there. We want to go back to here, here. So here there's this git graph. I guess actually this was from a git. Another extension called git graph as opposed to git lens, which we need as well. So here, but this is this is showing us the kind of complete history of the repository. There's the initial commit. Then I created this README thing. We didn't see this before because it's not associated with a particular file we're looking at. There is this README file, so we can go back here. README, which is a markup file which kind of explains how the game works, and that wasn't there in the very first version of the repository. It is there in the latest version, and you can see, so here is this commit, this next commit where we created that file. Okay, and then so we've seen this change before. And then here was the thing where we added the freeze functionality. Now you can see that there's this kind of little line coming off to the side. So what's that about? This is about branching. The way Git typically works is if you're going to add a new feature to a repository, you don't want to kind of be changing stuff that you want to sort of separate that off, make a separate branch in which you work on the new feature, and people who don't care about that can use the old branch without anything changing, and then once your new feature is ready, then you merge it back into the main branch. Okay, so development where we added this freeze functionality, and did that on this separate branch which was called freeze. Okay, so here back to here. Basically, this blue line here is on the main branch. You see it's marked up here as being the main branch, is in blue. And then there was a separate branch called freeze, which we added the freezing functionality, and that's separated off here, and then we merged it back at this point. And then there was a new change here. If we go back to the README file, here, so the README file, it contains this, it contains a picture. So if we can't actually see it there, maybe if we go, if we go to GitHub, take 1 second. Okay, so here is the code. Its code, in fact, is not just on my own machine, but it's also in the cloud. So here's the here's the home page for this thing in the cloud, and it's got the screenshot here. And so if you go back to VS Code, you can see that there was this commit up here where we added the screenshot to the into the README file. Okay, so let's have an example of how we actually change things and how we can sort of create more records in this Git repository. So we'll go back to here, and so I'll just do something very simple. So there was okay, so we had the size of the canvas. This was a 500 by 500 pixel window that we're doing gaming. So maybe let's make it 600 by 600. And then we'll save it. Okay, so now we go up here, we can see that even just in the File Explorer view, this file has now got an M attached to it, which the M indicates that the file has been modified. So you go back here to the version control window, and you can see here it says changes, and it's marked here that this thing has been modified. But now you have to understand that there's different versions of everything in a bunch of different places. So this is called a working tree. This thing here that we've got, which is the sort of main file that we just changed. But there's the repository in this kind of funny .git folder that we looked at a minute ago. That contains all the history of all the different changes that have happened in the past. But at the moment, the .git repository doesn't know anything about the fact that we've changed the size of the window. That's all that's in the working tree. It's not recorded in the repository. And then in between the working tree and the repository, there's this kind of separate thing called staged changes. So at the moment there's nothing staged, but we can press this plus button here, stage to change. Now the change in this zoo.py file has been staged. It's kind of in this intermediate place where it's kind of just ready to get put into the repository, but it's kind of not actually in the repository yet. And quite often, we'll stay, we'll change a bunch of different files for sort of some related new functionality. We might have to change several different files to set it up, and then we would kind of stage all those files together as a single change. And now we're going to commit it. So we would want to click this commit button, but before every time you change, you make a change and you commit it, you're supposed to have a commit message to describe what happened. So we're going to put in a commit message here. So we're saying make the window bigger. And there's various kind of conventions as to how you should write these commit messages. It's standard that you write it sort of as an imperative. There's a sort of like commands to do something rather than sort of saying we did this. You say do it, and there's some other conventions you could read about. But we'll just make a very simple commit message, make the window bigger, and then we'll click commit here. Okay, and now you can go back to the back to this Git graph thing, and you can see there's an extra commit on the top. Make the window bigger. Okay. But if we go back actually to GitHub, okay, you can see even if we refresh it here, hasn't been reflected here, and you click on zoo.py. Now we can actually see the file, and if we go back here, we can find the place where it sets it up. Which line is it? Okay, so here, and here when we set it up, you can see the size is still 500. Right? That's because there's yet another distinction, and we've got the whole repository here on my own machine, and then there's also the repository in the cloud. But you can see there's this kind of conveniently placed button. It says sync changes, and it just says push commit to origin/main. So origin, the word origin typically refers to the repository in the cloud. When you don't have to have a repository in the cloud. You can use Git just with everything just sitting on your own machine. But if you want to share your stuff with anyone else, it's usual to put it in the cloud. Very often on GitHub, or there are some other options. You can host Git repositories in different places instead of GitHub. But GitHub is kind of by far the most common for sort of open source shared repositories. So yeah, we can just push this up to GitHub by clicking the sync changes. And now if we go back here, then and you go back again to back to this repository. Now you can see that this new commit says 2 minutes ago we made this change to make a window bigger. Also, yeah, we can just look at this file here, and you should be able to, we can just edit this file. Okay, let's just change the description here. We'll say it's a very simple game. It's just a simple game. Okay, and now we can commit the changes here, and it's given me a commit message, update ruby.md. We won't bother doing anything more sophisticated than that. We'll just commit the change. Okay, so now if we go back to my local machine, you see we don't see that. We don't actually see that change here yet, but we can get it. We can click pull. We click pull here, and now we're pulling the changes from the remote repository, from the origin, and we see that we've got this update to ruby.md, and we can look at it here, and you can see that the word very has been inserted. So that's a very basic introduction to the simplest kinds of things that we can do with Git.